Today on Hawkeye's House of Horrors, I've got a great one today I'm going to bring for you. That's me, Hawkeye. I'm going to bring to you an American Werewolf in London. And this one definitely is a triple H. It's a highly recommended film from me. It's written and directed by John Landis. I certainly have, ooh, got a hair in my mouth there, like a werewolf. Um, I got a copy of the film on DVD, An American Werewolf in London, and it's got some cool features on it where they talk to John Landis, as well as makeup effects master Rick Baker, who I think has gone on to win like 7 Oscars or something crazy for his effects works through film. This one actually was the very first makeup Oscar, and he won it for American Werewolf in London. Does some spectacular work back in 1981. Groundbreaking, absolutely. As well as there's a commentary with David Naughton and Griffin Dunne, two dudes on the front of the cover there. But it's a great film, and it's actually John Landis's favorite film that he made. Now, still in the vein of horror, like he did do The Twilight Zone. Personally, I wouldn't put that on the top of his list or anything, but he also did ones that I love, National Lampoon's Animal House, as well as the Blues Brothers. The original from 1980, he did those ones as well, and this one came right after that, so it was right in that time period. Now, the title, An American Werewolf in London, it's actually a play or a cross between An American in Paris with Gene Kelly from 1951, as well as Werewolf of London with Henry Hall back in 1935. And I believe Werewolf of London may have been the very first universal horror, not horror film, but universal werewolf film. So it's got a cool tie into that film as well. And it was released on August the 21st, 1981. And it had a budget of 5.8 million back in 1981. It really did exceptional at the box office, had a box office grab of 92 million. From what I could find, that was combined in the US and worldwide, that number. So in today's dollars, 2024, it would be just under 318 million. That is an exceptional when you remember or consider that it was on a budget, if I um, work those numbers to today, of just under $21 million. It did spectacular at the box office. And it was Universal that was the distributor of this film. I'm not sure if it was worldwide as well, um, but I believe it was in North America, anyways. Um, so what we have here is a very funny horror flick or a very scary comedy. Landis, um, when he talks about this film, he's like, "Okay, guys, this is definitely a horror film. This is not a comedy. It is very funny, absolutely, but I 100% agree. This is you. If you're in the video section, um, you would go to the horror section to find this film. That's where it should be located." Now, Landis first wrote this script or did the first draft of the script way back in 1969 when he was only 19 years old. He then shelved it for a decade, then bring it back out and rewriting it for the modern times of the time that it was released. Now, supposedly, I read the production company Polygram. They were pressuring Landis to cast certain people in this film. Um, they actually wanted Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi in this film, and they were in the Blues Brothers that Landis did as well. Um, and personally, I would have loved to see that. I'm a big fan of those guys. I think they were very funny. Um, it would have been really good. But at the same time, I could see how Landis is also trying to distance himself from those actors, sorry, or maybe the Saturday Night Live alumni to show that, hey, I can make a movie on my own that is successful without these big, funny actors in it at the same time. Now, right at the beginning of this film, we are given some lovely landscape shots. It's awesome. I really enjoy that. Um, I think it was in Wales. It's supposed to be Northern England, but I think it was in Wales where they shot that. Um, but along with the lovely landscapes, we're given the song Blue Moon by Bobby Vinton, um, which is quite spectacular as well. Um, it works wonderfully. The songs that Landis picks for this film, they actually all of them have moon in the title. And I'm going to go through each of them during this review as well. So I'll get into the story here. A little bit of the story. Um, so anywho, we follow these two best buddies, David Kessler, played by David Naughton, who I believe before this was in like Dr. Pepper commercials. That's what he was known for. But personally, I would say this is the film. When I see him or think of him, it is this film I think of. Um, he did other films as well, but this is the big one for me in my mind. And his best buddy is Jack Goodman, played by Griffin Dunne. And I remember him in quite a few films, but Martin Scorsese's After Hours, I haven't seen that in a very long time. As well as My Girl, he was in that one as well. But anyways, these two dudes, they're going backpacking through England. Now, one recommendation I would not give if you're a hungry, tired traveler, um, do not stop at the slaughtered lamb like these two gentlemen did. Um, it may be just to the left of the statue of the Angel of Death. That might be a landmark to look for where it's located. Um, Anywho, these um, two travelers, they're warned by people within the slaughtered lamb to keep off the moors, beware the moon, and keep to the road. They sadly do not follow these steps and are attacked by a werewolf. Jack is viciously killed, and David is torn into before the werewolf is then killed by this group of people from the slaughtered lamb. So David ends up in a hospital, and he meets the lovely nurse Alex Price. Jenny Agutter, um, she's great in this role. She really adds a certain light to the film. Very lovely actress. I remember her from Child's Play 2, as well as Logan's Run from back in the 70s. Anyway, she, once he's ready to leave the hospital, she sets him up with a place to stay at this point. And it just happens to be her apartment, which I'm pretty sure crosses the line. Um, I, whatever. And I would say maybe this is the 19-year-old John Landis still coming through in the script, perhaps. That it is kind of unbelievable, but anyways, that is what happens. Um, and of course, they fall in love, but David realizes he is a werewolf. A big thanks goes out to his buddy Jack, who's coming to tell him this after he's dead. He comes back and visits David. I actually love this. I love how every time he comes back to talk to him, he's like more rotten, more decayed. I love it. That's great. And he's got such a positive attitude at the same time. It's great. He's dead and he's so positive. I love it. Um, but what we're left with, um, for me as a viewer, is a great premise, and a different one for a werewolf film because what we're given is that David is the last werewolf in this line of werewolves, and as that line is still exists, Jack has to walk the earth in limbo until this line is killed off. So he's essentially in his own personal hell here on earth until that happens. So what David must do is kill himself to sever that line so that Jack is able to go to the afterworld or to leave the earth. Um, of course, David cannot accept this. He just thinks, I'm going kind of crazy here. Um, but I really like that premise, and it's different than other werewolf films of the past. Now, the biggest scene in this film, absolutely, is the werewolf transformation scene. It's great. Um, when I watch it, this happens to me every time. It shows me um, Landis was at the top of his game here when making this film. So I could see how Landis thinks this is his masterpiece or this is his greatest film because this film is done differently than most directors would do. It happens to me every time. I know what's coming. I'm gearing up for it. Okay, here's a transformation scene, but it like surprises me when it happens. Um, Almost like there's no build up to the scene. There is, of course, um, but you see him in the apartment alone. Alex has gone to work as a nurse at the hospital. We hear CCR's Bad Moon Rising. Love that tune as he's in the apartment. Then we cut to Nurse Alex at the hospital with this cute, happy little kid who just says no to everything. But then we see the full moon outside the window. Then we cut back to David, and he starts to transform. Um, One thing to note too is there's a ton of Mickey Mouse stuff in this apartment, all over the place, or Disney. There's a Donald Duck in there too. It's everywhere. It's kind of cool. It's very in the shots while this werewolf transformation is going on. I really like that. But anyways, it catches me off guard, the transformation, because it almost seems like David is faking it for a moment to me, um, because of how Landis has brought this film out, or how the build up to that scene right there. Um, it wouldn't have been done by that way by many directors or written in that way. I really enjoy it. And then at this point, we hear Blue Moon by the amazing Sam Cooke. He's one of the greatest singers, in my opinion, of all time. He could really sing. But anywho, we hear that tune as this transformation is going on, which is hilarious because as it's happening, you can tell. And this might be the first film as well. And in my mind, this is how a transformation would take place in my mind. Landis and Rick Baker, they nailed it here. But anyways, David is in extreme agony as you can like hear the bones cracking and the hair coming out of his skin, and he like apologizes to Jack for calling him a meatloaf. I thought that was really funny. Um, but it's a terrific transformation scene, and if you haven't seen it, come on, go watch it. Um, I mean, it's great, and it's old school effects. There's nothing done on the computer here. This is all hands on, like right in the moment. And I believe Naughton was like under like the floor, so like I think it was like his upper body, and below was under the floor. So they attached this werewolf to his body. It's really great. Now, as I said, Rick Baker won an Oscar for the effects in this. That's the only Oscar this film won, but that doesn't matter. That it's a well-earned Oscar for Baker on that. And I love in this scene, Landis does this in all his films, and I love it. I think Hitchcock might have done it times as well, but Landis, this is like um, one of his things. He did it all the time. I remember Eddie Murphy would do this in his films, where the character breaks the fourth wall and looks directly at the camera. And as this werewolf transformation is happening, David looks to the camera, and I love it. It's actually very haunting that he's doing this all with Blue Moon playing, and it's just it's just so very well done. Um, now, Landis stated that he thought the wolf transformation scene was too long, but it was because of Baker's skill and how things were turning out. He extended the transformation scene. Now, personally, I actually think it's a perfect length. I like to look at things a little bit longer than just would move on to the next thing. I really like to do that. To almost obsess a little bit over certain things in film, where the director allows that to happen, or the cinematographer. Um, but in comparison, though, the Howling also came out in 1981. Now that wolf transformation scene, no doubt about it, it's too long. It's like 4 or 5 times longer than it should have been. But this one, I think it's perfect. Uh, the length, I think it's like 2 minutes or something. Um, so I really enjoy that. Um, now with the Howling as well, I found Baker was actually supposed to work on the Howling. That was the film he was going to work on. Landis called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, we're going to make an American Werewolf in London. Let's go." But Baker's like, "I'm going to work on the Howling." But supposedly Landis talked him out of it. You know that this was one that they were going to be making, and Baker knew of this um, film for a very long time. He was uh, going to be the effects guy for it, so he jumped over and worked on American Werewolf in London. And it was Baker's protege Rob Bottin. Phew, uh, he did John Carpenter's The Thing a year later. Um, he's very talented as well, no doubt. But he's the one that worked on Howling, and I think he did a really good job on it too. Um, but there you have it. Now I love the scene within the slaughtered lamb when David and Jack walk in there, and do you have any hot food? No. We have beers and spirits. That's what we have. Do you have any coffee? Now we got tea. I love it. They don't want these guys in the bar at all. Um, I love it. But in this scene as well, you have Brian Glover, who I remember from Alien 3. Um, really good actor, as well as Rick Mayall. He doesn't have any lines in this film, but he's in this. I think he's playing chess with Glover, I think. Um, but Rick Mayall, I remember him from The Young Ones and Bottom, a couple of British comedies, sitcoms. I think The Young Ones is early 80s, Bottom might have been early 90s. I saw those as a kid, and yeah, he was different as a comedian. I was really attracted to his comedy and his high energy. But he's in the film as well. Um, but with the slaughtered lamb, I gotta ask, are the people in the bar monsters as well? Because they shoved these two travelers away rather violently. Um, and then I guess I understand they then killed the werewolf, but they shoved these innocent, ignorant travelers out to their death. Um, I know I also understand they said, "Hey, stick to the road, beware the moors, don't go there." But, you know, they still shoved them out. Um, but I do love the look of David and Jack on the moors when they hear this wolf. They can't see it. You can't see it. Um, but they're terrified. They're on the moors. You can see their breath in the air, and you can hear this werewolf in the background. And when the attack happens, it's quite brutal. Um, and I like the two cops in the film. I forget their names, but one is older, no nonsense cop who doesn't actually seem to want to work too hard either. The younger one is clumsy, almost a buffoon. But then you realize he's actually brighter than you think he is. He's actually walking down the right path in investigating the case of Jack's death and the attack on David. Um, and I love how the Muppets are in the film as well as the legendary Frank Oz, in a quite funny role as Mr. Collins, the U.S. Embassy representative. Um, but when the Muppets, it's in a dream sequence that David is having, dreaming of his family, sitting at home, watching the Muppets. And then these like Nazi zombies show up with these automatic weapons and just cause chaos and shoot and kill. There's an iconic look I love of David with a knife against his throat, terrified, but one of these Nazis is got a knife against his throat at the same time. It's a great scene. Now, I love the scene too of David making faces to Nurse Alex in the subway with all these punks standing around, and then they notice that he's making faces. It's it's good. There's no dialogue in it, but it really puts a smile on my face and really adds something to the film there. And I love the scene as well as of Kessler waking up nude in the London Zoo, and needing to get out first of the cage where he's with these wolves, and then to get out of the zoo after that. He's got no clothes on. He finds this little kid with balloons. Now, David decides to try and fool the kid into giving him the balloons so he can, like, put it over his private area. He then tells the boy he's a famous balloon thief and he'll give him £2. And then the kid asks an excellent question. Why would a thief want to give me £2? Then, after the balloons are stolen, the boy tells his mother that a naked American man stole my balloons. To me, that's the funniest scene in the film. It's hilarious. Um, Although this is funny as hell too, when David is in a porno theater watching See You Next Wednesday. More in that about that in a sec. But he meets up with Jack. Um, Once again, he's really rotten now. But along with Jack are all the other people that David has killed during the film as well. And they begin to argue about how David should kill himself. I thought that was quite funny. Now, See You Next Wednesday um, was actually a line of dialogue from uh, the masterpiece Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So Landis took that line, and it was a fake film that was advertised in many of his films. Um, the Blues Brothers, I remember there was ads everywhere. The Kentucky Fried Movie, Trading Places, Coming to America, and even Michael Jackson's Thriller. There were advertisements for this film. So, in other words, are all of these films all within the same cinematic universe? I don't know. Take that if you will. Um, Now, more about Thriller. Michael Jackson was such a fan of this film that he wanted John Landis to direct and Rick Baker to do the effects to Thriller, which I got to say is still one of the greatest music videos of all time. It's fantastic, right up my alley. Now, when the film wraps or ends, you realize This is, in fact, a very sad film. It's not a comedy. That's extremely black with the subject matter going on if it's a comedy. Because you're dealing with a lonely young man who have actually may have found his soulmate, only to not only to not hold back these horrible urges or the fact that he's a werewolf. Um, and then he is killed by the local police, leaving his love extremely sad, crying, and lonely. And now dealing with the fact that her lover, her man, is dead in front of her. Then, right after that, we get the amazing Blue Moon by the Marcells. The last time I was watching this, I was like, wow, what an ending, how sad. And then you get that song, and I'm like singing it within like 2 seconds. Um, it's just one extreme to the other. I love that, how the songs are doing that in this film. Now, Elmer Bernstein, who did music to a couple other Landis films, Animal House and Trading Places, um, did the music to this film. I think it only runs like 7 minutes. There's not much in it. So there's either not much music or it's the songs that are very memorable to the viewer. So nothing against Bernstein. He doesn't really have a whole lot of time to work out a theme or really go for it, but it blends in nicely with what when it is being used on the screen. Now, I'm trying to remember um, if there was any other songs in the film. I don't think so. Um, oh, there is. I'm sorry. There's Van Morrison's Moon Dance. That happens during David and Alex's uh, love scene, which is actually pretty good. Um, I must say, most love scenes are generic, maybe, or follow the same path. But this was more interesting, more, and definitely hearing Van Morrison at the same time really helped it out. But it's definitely a good scene as well. Now, filming took place in February and March of 1981. So that's it. This is a great film. Triple H, boom. It's great. Now, there was a sequel that came out in 1997, and I'm going to watch it again and review it for you. It was An American Werewolf in Paris, and it is nowhere near as good. But I'm going to watch it again. It's been a very, very long time since I've seen it. But that's what we have here is John Landis's An American Werewolf in London. So, anyways, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, if you like this video, don't be afraid to like, um, or even you could subscribe. There's other videos that I've got. I think I got like over 40 so far going. And if you wanted to comment, is this maybe your favorite werewolf film? I don't know if it's mine. It's really tough. Because there are some really good ones and there's some absolutely terrible ones too. But um, but yeah, if this is your favorite, you can comment and say what you loved about this film, what made it so good for you. But anyways, that was a lot of fun. Hawkeye out and stay scared.